So let's move on to our second tip. This is about being the expert. Now, there's a quote here which says that 70% of purchasing decisions are made online before the customer even sees a salesperson. And if salespeople, not just brands, if salespeople are not where the customers are, which is on the web, they're going to lose. Now, what does this mean in practice? So we have a few contrasts here. I hope that none of you look like either of these people. But at one extreme, we've got that classic salesperson. You can tell just by looking at him that he's happy to see you. He's going to sell you something. That's great. Prospects don't want to talk to salespeople. We all know that. They want to talk to experts, like the lovely gentleman below, or not quite like that. But they want to talk to people who are knowledgeable, credible, neutral, who are genuinely interested in the subject matter, who are more interested in the thing that they're selling than in the result of having sold it to you. It's about trust. So part of the role of social media for a salesperson is to build your profile or the profile of your team of having a credible opinion that which is worth listening to. So how do you do this? First of all, you need to establish your area of expertise. Now, from a B2B point of view, that might be something to do with technology, it might be having, or to do with consultancy or whatever that is, but finding that niche. If you're B2C or it's more product-led, it might be something different. It might not even be around expertise. It might be more about your personality and the way you view the world. So, for example, Johnny Bowden, I'm sure all of you have had those great catalogues and great communications from Bowden before. Johnny has created a profile for himself which is about selling his lifestyle and his viewpoint. Same with Jamie Oliver, same with all sorts of personalities. And so you can borrow that idea of putting a bit of guru status around yourself to dilute the sales and to dial up the credibility. So then you need to decide how you can best showcase your expertise, and we'll talk about some ways of doing that in a moment. And then you need to connect with the right people via LinkedIn, following blogs, following Twitterers, and so on. So let's see how we do this. Proving your expertise. Now, I'm talking about this very much from an expertise rather than a personality point of view, but the same applies to both. So my view is that every salesperson should be producing or owning one great piece of expert content every quarter. And if it's something that you can't create, either you don't have time or you don't necessarily have all the skills, then have it created for you. But make sure it is authored by you, or it's you that is the profile within it. It's your personality that's stamped on it. Consider creating a taster version and a full version, whether it's a video, whether it's a white paper, whether it's a whole little microsite about a particular way of life or something like that. Consider a taster version that everybody can just view and have a look at, and then a full version that perhaps they have to register for or they have to request. What that does is it turns real people who are browsing around but totally invisible to you into visible people that can then become part of your sales pipeline. Marketing people are pretty happy with invisible people as long as they know the numbers. They're pretty happy for people to be invisible. Sales people, we need people to be visible. We need to build a dialogue. If we're personal selling, we need to know who they are, who we're trying to build a relationship with. I would consider buffing your LinkedIn profile to a high shine, and I've got some tips later for how to do that. And don't forget that the profile on your own website, if you have one, should match that as well. And be found, so make sure you use good keywords on your LinkedIn profile so that you are associated with whatever area of expertise or that personality that you're building around yourself. And once you've done that, you can start to spread your expertise. For example, you could create a blog around your niche area. There's no need to make this an arduous task. You could keep it very short and simple, just 1 to 2 paragraphs entry per week. That would be plenty. Consider setting up your own LinkedIn group or your own forum somewhere else around this niche area. If you're in a team of salespeople, share each other's knowledge pieces. So if you don't feel comfortable plugging your own content everywhere, then promote each other's as a selfless act rather than a self-promotion. Or flaunt your own if you're brave enough or if the style is right. Contribute regularly to the right groups, so as well as plugging your own world, which is your blog, your LinkedIn group, your LinkedIn profile, put your stuff into other people's groups and profiles as well. And a really simple way to do this is to get a Share This toolbar, which is a little add-on that will go into Mozilla or into Internet Explorer or Chrome or whatever browser you use, and it means that every time you find a web page which is really relevant to your audience, your niche, and the personality that you're creating, you click the Share This button, and that instantly gives you the option to post it immediately to all your LinkedIn groups, to Twitter, whatever else you're on, in one fell swoop. A really nice, quick, easy way to do it. Finding those items, I use Google AdWords to do that. So I've set up Google AdWords to tell me all the new web pages based on a particular search profile that have come up each morning. So I scan that, I find 2 or 3 things that look interesting, and then I click into them, and I use the Share This button to plough them out. So I've automated the process as much as possible, and what that means is I can share 3 to 5 articles very easily every week in 3 clicks, and that's all that's needed. And actually, I do think there's an optimum. I think people who post all the time, it just becomes like white noise. So I think there is an optimum. You'll know what's right for your particular industry, but a good rule of thumb, I would say, is 3 to 5 articles per salesperson per week. It's also great to scan discussions. So if you're part of a LinkedIn group, for example, you'll get the digest. I tend to get that every week rather than every day. I find if it comes every day, I just delete it. If it comes every week, I do scan down. And if I see something that is very, very relevant, that looks like a truly interesting discussion that hasn't been started by someone with a sales agenda, then I would contribute, but only when it's very relevant. And finally, you can spread your expertise further by polling, asking questions, and asking genuine questions that don't require the answer, yes, I need to buy your software, widget, product, service, consultancy, whatever it is. And that's part of being an expert listener, not just an expert sharer. And social media is full of great tools with which to ask people questions, and the trick is to find the right tool where people will answer it. So your own LinkedIn group, yes, you probably will generate a good response. Posing questions on Twitter, not so sure. They don't, for me, they don't get such a good response. I promised that I'd give you a list of things to do with your own LinkedIn profile. We won't go through these in detail, but when you get the slide pack after the webinar, I'd recommend that you go through, and as a salesperson or a manager of salespeople, these are the 8 things that you should make absolutely certain that you do on your LinkedIn profile. So just as a quick summary, we want to make sure that your profile is complete. So the more complete it is, the higher it will come up the search listings. We want to make sure that your LinkedIn profile makes it very clear what you do. So I would list out what you're expert in, which credible clients you work on, if that's relevant to your particular industry, and your key achievements, rather than just giving a CV-like update. I'd make it interesting. Use keywords so that you're found, get recommendations. Every quarter, go through your address book, your Outlook folders, and make sure that you've linked in with anybody you've got some kind of good connection with. Join relevant groups, link to your profile and they're on your website, and then add a connect with me on LinkedIn link to your profile on your email signature. Okay, number 3. This is about being the hub. So we talked about being the expert, and that's the reason why prospects and potential clients might want to speak to you. The other reason they might want to speak to you is if you're seen as being the person at the heart of everything in your particular industry. So they might know that you're a salesperson, they might know that you're not the expert, that you would bring in another expert, but if they feel like you know everybody who's anybody, then you're worth talking to because you share what's going on behind the scenes, that information that isn't possible to get via the web. So it's a really good thing to build your profile as a hub. Now, if we think about why, well, prospects is a terrible accolade for the human race, but prospects are basically fearful and nosy, 2 excellent attributes. They're fearful because they want to do what is safe and what other people do, and they use social media to get a gauge of what other people are thinking about and buying. We all do it. They're also nosy and curious. They want to know how other companies are doing things, what other people are doing. And again, people who use social media heavily, they've got those 2 characteristics in spades, and that's what we're tapping into. And if they're going to be people who are following the herd, you need to be the shepherd, so you need to show that you're moving in the right circles. How do you do this? LinkedIn. Now, I have quite a firm view on LinkedIn, and I know there's at least one person on this call who has loads and loads of LinkedIn contacts, and I salute that person for them. But my personal view is that more than 500 contacts on LinkedIn says it gives you a brand value about your personal brand, which isn't necessarily positive. So I think you should have more than 200 LinkedIn contacts, but I think you should have less than 500. As soon as you get to 500 contacts, you get that 500 plus symbol rather than a number. And when I see that symbol, I just know that the person with all those connections, I know that they don't know them in any huge depth. I know that there are going to be a whole range of distances between that person. That will have some close connections, but there must be a lot of very distant connections, people they've never even met. And if you think about, there's I don't know the reference for this, and I can certainly find this out, but there's a human ability to interact with about 150 people. And if you look at W.L. Gore, which won the best companies to work for several times in a row, how they structure their business is every time they grow another 150 people, those 150 people have their own building and become their own function, and they never have more than 150 people attempting to work together as a unit, because they know that that's the maximum number of people that we can interact with. And I think LinkedIn is similar. For those contacts to be meaningful, okay, we can stretch a bit further than 150, but beyond 500, we're kind of stretching that a bit too much. However, Twitter is different. My cutoff for Twitter is to have 3,000 plus followers. We worked really hard to get to 3,000, and then we didn't worry too much how many we got after that. On Facebook, sky's the limit. We all have different numbers of Facebook fans if we're a company page, or friends if we're a personal, if it's our personal profile. And once you've got all those people and all those followers, then you need to show that you're the person in the know. And this is kind of name dropping for salespeople, and there's a bit of a skill to doing this, so it doesn't sound like you're the most heinous salesperson in all the world. But I've given you a couple of examples. So you can blog a little bit about your travel and sales experiences over the last weeks. So for example, when I was talking to the board at an FMCG HQ in Geneva last week, you're slipping a number of different things in there, which is that you're working with big companies, that you're talking to important people, and that you're travelling to Geneva. And those things just build up your personal brand. Now for you, the kind of thing that you might blog or put in your status update might be totally different, but what you're doing is just building bit by bit that reputation. What is your lifestyle like? What is it that you are the hub of? Another way to show the fact that you are at the centre of the universe is to be really generous with introductions. So show abundance, make introductions as if they're going out of fashion. Show that you're well connected and it's easy for you to do that.